Morning, everybody. Welcome to our session today. Uh, it's a makeup session. I had internet issues last week. So today we're going to concentrate on actually looking in control and go through the process of adding a company and contacts and um, then creating an estimate, walking that estimate through the conversion process, talk about statuses and changing statuses and stations, processing payments, look at it quickly at the concept of quick products and print options for invoices, estimates, um, and just general reports. So with all that said, I'm going to change my view over here. Just one second, be with me, so that we can see control. I'm not being able to shift. Just a second. There it is. Linda, can you confirm that you're seeing control?
Yes. Yes, we
Okay,
can
good,
see control.
good. Okay, so the process of adding companies is fairly straightforward. You can start with here on my dashboard. I could choose new company. I could choose the dashboard up here, not dashboard, but the new item, the new icon, and choose new and then company. That's probably going to be the most efficient. I'll show you in a little bit. You could also actually start as if you were going to create an invoice or create an estimate. And from within that screen, you can also select, to create a new company. So I'm going to select it here. I'm not going to actually create one. I'm just going to walk through the kind of work my way from the top of the screen down to the bottom, and then we're going to go through each of these UDF tabs as we walk through this. So throughout control, whether it's in the new company screen or other functions, if you see a field that's got a yellowish or colored background, that means that field is required, and you can't save whatever it is that you're working with unless you've entered the field there. So here, obviously, is the name of the company, and the concept is, you would just begin to type the name. Now, after you've typed it in, if you want, you can choose the check name item over here on the right, and that will tell you if that company already exists by precisely how you've spelled it. If it already exists in the system. Now the check marks here, just quickly, I'll review two or three of these. The active means that company is active in the system. And what active means is that you can choose them when you're creating a new estimate or creating a new order. If a company goes out of business and you're no longer doing business with them, then what the ideal would be to edit that company and remove the check mark. That physically leaves the company in the database, which you really want to do, but it makes it so appear as if that company does not exist, and you can't choose that company then when you're creating a new order or a new estimate. Everybody is going to begin, every company that you add is going to begin as a prospect, and that simply means that they don't have estimates or orders. Now, once an order or an estimate has been saved, then then control will remove that check mark, and they will be considered not as a prospect, but as an active. Well, actually, they'll be a client. They'll switch over, and the client will be selected. Now, a company that you enter as a client, meaning that you're providing services and goods to them, they can also be a vendor. And a vendor would be someone that you're using to to purchase services and goods. So you can enter a company as a client, you can enter a company as a vendor, and they can be both. So those are the four main pieces to talk about, relative to the company. Now, moving over to the far right-hand, top right-hand area of the screen, I'm just going to comment briefly on the pricing level, promotions, and plans, and what they mean, from a day-to-day standpoint. Pricing level. Think of it this way: when you have control, you enter a product, and you're going to produce a certain number of items, for example. The pricing that's going to be chosen when you leave this alone. Think of standard as 100% pricing or normal pricing. Now, there may be times that you want to charge either more than the 100% level, or you want to charge less than 100% of the pricing. So if it'd be 100, if you're going to charge 85%, that would imply then that you're producing goods and services at wholesale for a particular company, or you just want to grant them a standard 15% the reduction in the cost across the board. 105% or 110% above the normal price, you're charging a premium. I typically did that for customers that we were providing additional personal value-added services to, or if I had an outside salesperson and I was paying that salesperson a commission for the value-added service that they provided to the customer, then I would likewise use the concept of pricing level above 100%. Now, pricing level affects every line item in the estimate or in the order. Promotion. Think of promotion mostly from a marketing context. That's the ideal way that the promotion should be viewed. Now, you can do the promotion in a manner that's very similar to that of a pricing level, where you would give a 10% ongoing reduction in the price, but the customer would see that, depending on how you choose to show it on your invoice or on the order, as a discount or as a reduction. The promotion can also be a fixed dollar value. Might be $10 off, it might be $25 off. But I'm going to open this screen as if we're going to create a new promotion just to show you the difference. So here you would enter the name, put any kind of description information in here you want to use. Now, the key difference between a promotion and a pricing level is that from a marketing perspective, you may want to say, I want this promotion to be active only during the month of December or for the first quarter or whatever specific time frame that you want. And what that means is once December 31st would go by, then that promotion could not be chosen and associated with a particular estimate or an order, or it can always be available. Down here at the bottom, where you see the types, you can use a promotion if you simply want to track the number of times that a particular promotion has been used without any kind of financial impact associated with that estimate or order. This is what you would do if you're going to do it as a percentage off, and then you would enter the percentage value. This is what you would choose if you're going to apply it as a fixed dollar value, and then you're going to associate that with with a particular account so that it shows up in your financials. So the think in terms of promotions more in the context of a true marketing initiative, and use the pricing level. If it's going to be something that you're going to permanently associate with a company, or on a selective basis, associate it with the company on a case-by-case basis. Pricing plans is a little bit more complex. There are maybe situations from a pricing strategy standpoint that you want for a particular customer or customers, that you want a product or multiple products to operate differently, but only for a select set of customers. So the concept is that you would define a plan, give it a name, then you would do two things. One, you would associate that plan with a specific customer or customers, and then you would go into a one or more products, edit those products, and in the pricing UDF, that's where you would enter in, the specific details as far as how that product is going to work. And it's far too complex a topic to illustrate here in this particular session, but there are cases where the use of a pricing plan can be very, very effective and powerful. From a strategy of working with a set of clients. Now, coming down in the company tab here, we're going to concentrate on these fields here now and work our way across. A company that you enter can either be a standalone company, or they can be a subsidiary of another company. Think of, you might create a holding company, enter it, save it, then you may enter multiple companies that are associated with that. And it's primarily effective because there are reports that you can generate that will combine the subsidiaries from a reporting standpoint up under the umbrella of the primary company. You can enter department location if you want to. I encourage you to always enter the web address. The system is always going to assume that it's the primary salesperson associated with this company. It's going to typically be defaulted in control as what's referred to as the house account, but that can be changed at the user level to a particular person or a department, so to speak. Over on the right, these first two are the most important that I'll comment on. The industry, there's a big list. You can add to that list, rearrange it, edit it, create your own list. I encourage you from a marketing standpoint to capture the industry, because there will be times that you will probably want to do marketing initiatives to a particular industry. Okay. So even though it's not set up as a required field, I would encourage you to do so. The origin, we're going to talk about origin today in two different contexts. One is at the company level, and the other is at the invoice or order level. So the order origin is, how did this customer come to you this very first time? Cold call, direct mail, from an internet account, networking, etc. And again, you can add to this list or tailor it to your own preferences. Now, down here in the lower area, at the company level, you can enter the billing address, separately enter the shipping address, It's normally going to default to the billing, and then if need be, you can add new additional addresses. Might be for a PO box or something of that nature. And then these are the relevant fields for each of the addresses that you may enter in. So whatever you enter here for the billing address for the company, the shipping by default will be the same. And if you need to change it, then you can create a different shipping address for that company. Phone numbers and stuff down here at the bottom. Over here on the right, there will be some companies that will require a PO number. If so, you would enter it here. Then if you put a check mark below it, that will tell the system that a PO must be entered at the time of order entry or estimate entry, primarily order entry. So you can put that in if you want to use POs, what it is, and you can put a check mark here if it's mandatory. Default tax class. This is a very, very important field. A tax class is a combination of one or more sales tax entities or sales tax accounts. So my location, for example, would be my state tax plus a county tax, might be plus a third tax, a fourth tax. I've seen them up as high as four or so levels. So the default is going to be where your business resides. In some states, you need to really be careful. You might need to reach out to your friendly accountant to see what the state requirements are. Here in Iowa, where I'm located, it's the tax that applies is where the customer takes possession of the finished goods. So if you in my case, if I went to the adjoining county next door, then I would have to change the tax class because that county is a different tax rate combination than where I live. And you can have as many different tax classes as you as are required, in your particular circumstance. This bottom one here is deals with the taxability of the company. So if the company is not taxable, then you would change the taxability of that customer. I'm going to quickly move over now to the contacts section. There are some similarities. Every company that you add must have a primary contact and it must have a billing contact. Now, one person can be both, but if you have one person that's going to be the primary, and that's the primary, then will be the one that the system will always assume is going to be placing an order or making a request for an estimate. So that's the lead on the primary. A billing is going to be if you were to mail statements on every at the 15th and at the end of the month, then that statements can be directed to the billing address. Again, the same person can be both. The one contact can be the primary, a second one could be the billing, and the third and the fourth and the fifth might be neither. Okay. So down in general area, none of these are really required. I strongly encourage you to, if this contact is going to be the primary contact, then enter that in. Phone numbers, birth date stuff is optional. I always encourage you to enter the email. And again, that's primarily from two perspectives. One is marketing related, and secondly, probably more important, so that you can email estimates and email invoices from the system when they're generated. Phone numbers, The system is going to assume that the phone number that apply will be the company phone number, but if it's different, then you can enter the unique phone number for the office. That might be a mobile number and stuff like that, fax and other if you're needing. Billing address, you have the same combinations of billing address, shipping address, and additional ones that you can add. If you don't enter unique addresses here, then they're always going to default back to what the company address is, or billing address, or the company shipping address. And again, if you're going to do a shipping address and it's going to be different than the billing address, then you would choose the shipping and say, no, this is going to be a new address for shipping for this particular person. The last tab that I want to comment on the financial side is, or on the company side, is the financial here. When you create a new company, they're always going to be considered a cash company, meaning that your expectation is that they're going to pay at the time either that the order was placed, or they're going to pay at minimum when the order was picked up or delivered or installed. You can selectively grant terms, payment terms. Illustrated here is net 15 or net 30. What that net 15 means is that 15 days after the order has been picked up, then that order would be considered past due, or 30 days, or 45 days, or 60 days. Over on the left-hand side, if you're going to grant payment terms of net 15 or net 30, I strongly encourage you to have a policy where you have a credit account plan that you would change this to say that they have credit approved, and it's going to be in excess or up to about $500 or whatever number you want to put in. And whatever the value is that you put in there, if the cumulative value in accounts receivables exceeds that number, then you will be prompted at the time that that order is being placed. And it won't prevent you from saving the order by any means, but it will simply prompt you, and you have to acknowledge that that it's okay to do that, to save it. You can put in a credit number if you want to, and you can put in the date that you approve that. I religiously did this every January. So if I had a customer that wanted payment terms, I used a authorization, or not an author, but a credit approval form, and I recorded that in the system. And then the system can generate reports for those customers that have payment term, been granted payment terms, and you can update that on a case-by-case basis. This is a good stopping point for questions if you've got any. If not, we'll move on to the next section. I'm going to cancel this. Now, entering new estimates or new company or new orders can either be done from the dashboard here. Again, just like the company, it can be from up here, new order or new estimate. I'm going to start with a new estimate. And again, I'm not going to create one in the interest of time, but the process would be very similar. Here, you're going to either enter the name of the company if one already exists. And if you're starting from the new estimate screen or the new order screen, you can always come over here to the right where I'm circling and say, I need to create a new company first. Okay, so enter the company or make a new one. It's always going to require you to enter a description for this particular estimate. If the company was assigned a pricing level, it's going to show up right here. You can change it on a case-by-case basis if you need to do so. Okay. Likewise, if you had associated the company with a promotion, it will show up, and if not, you can do it on a case by case basis. Okay. Now, I'm going to ignore the order entry. We'll look at one and then we'll come back to it. But so the items tab or items UDF is where you're entering the line items, for the services or goods that you're going to produce for them. You can always look at the company and then edit if you need to. You can look at the totals tab. At the totals tab, you need to look at the primary salesperson that you want for this order. It's going to show who's logged in and who created the estimate or the order. If there's a proof date that's required, you can put one in if it's required. The system, based on what the order or what the line items are, is always going to calculate a due date. And again, you can change that or set it as you need to, and then you can indicate that it is a firm date if you need to do that. You can pre-associate an order or an estimate with a particular station, like that it's pending in the case of an estimate. Now here's the second flavor, so to speak, of an origin. This is, how did this particular customer come to you for this specific estimate or this specific order? The list is going to be slightly different in the case of the estimate, and it will look different yet for the origin for an order. If a PO was going to be required, you would enter it over here. And then after you're done with the items the line items that you've entered, you're going to see the totals of the prices and all that. This is where the taxes will be illustrated. It will show you what this particular tax class is that applies. And if you need to change that, then you can choose this and say, I need to choose a different tax class for this particular estimate or for this particular order. Okay. Now I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to open an estimate that's already created. Let's pick one that's, I'm going to pick this one. And what I'm going to do is clone it. So we can kind of see the flavor of creating a new one. So here, I associated it with this particular customer. This was the description. You can see that I've used this one as a guinea pig a couple times. Got a couple of line items, that are in here. I didn't use a pricing level or a promotion. And then the company, I could look at it if I needed to see it. Look at the totals. It's a house account. I can change that if I wanted to for myself, and on down with the dates. I could put in that it's a pending status, and I want to say that this one was a result of a referral. Put in a PO if need be. I'm not going to comment on these. That's a topic for a different day. So now let's save that. And after you've created an estimate, or as you're creating an estimate, it's not unusual if you just choose the save button over here in the action toolbar, it's going to save it as an estimate. But if the customer, if they're standing in front of you, or they're on the phone with you, or whatever the case may be, you could start with the assumption that it's an estimate, but actually want to save it not as an estimate, but save it immediately as an order. Or for a topic for a different day, you could save it as a recurring order. So let's save it as an order, as an estimate. Now it's in the system and it's starting its life in the pending. There's a pending estimate. Now, down at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to edit this so we can see it again because there's a very important concept that I want you to be aware of, and it's called variations. So if I scroll down to the bottom of the screen, notice in this area below here, it says add or delete or rename or clone. And see the term variation 1. From a pricing perspective and from a quality of customer service, it's often very, very important to be able to show a customer different choices. The system refers to those choices using the term variation. So if I wanted to present this customer with 2 choices or 3 choices, I can do that. I can come up here. Think of this as variation 1. Now, if I wanted to add another one, give them a second choice, and it's going to be essentially the same line items, but maybe with different quantities, then I would simply choose clone. Okay. Now it's down here as a second one. So I could come up to this first one and open the line item. Come on. There we go. And maybe I wanted to change that quantity to 25. And that's really the only change that I wanted to make. I'm doing it the simple way. Still leave this one as a quantity of 20, or if it's 100. Now, I can also come down here and I can choose the rename function and give that a nicer, maybe a nicer name than variation. And I could give this one a different name as well. Okay, so now all I've done is given them 2 different names. Ignore my spelling down here. Now, if I wanted to create another option, I can do that by choosing add, give it a name, and now it's going to bring up a blank slate. So now I would go up to and choose the different products that I wanted to provide an option for. So let's just do a 6 4 by 8 banners. Didn't choose the right one. Now I'm going to do a 4 by 8, and then I'm going to choose. There we go. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. We're going to do some banners, okay? Now you can have as many line items as you want in here. So if that's all you're going to do as far as the choices, then when you're done, choose save. Now to not complicate things more, but show you that different choices exist within a particular option or starting scratch from a 4th option, I could also use the ability to come up to, I didn't say that yet, I could come up to the top and I can copy an entire set of line items from a different existing estimate or a different existing order, or I could come in and copy selected line items, either from an order or from an estimate. Okay. So there are many, many different ways that you can create these variations and then be able to present them to a customer. So let's just do a real quick preview of what that estimate might look like where estimates or where variations are going to be involved. Okay, it's showing estimate number 551, and here's the first variation. Each variation is going to begin on a new page. Here's the second one, spelled incorrectly. And here is the third one with just those banners that I added. The use of this feature in many, many cases can differentiate yourself from your competitors and how you present your information to a customer. So it's clear, it is simple, a way for them to see it. And then the concept is that the customer is going to turn around and say, hey, I like what you presented to us, and we need to go forward. Okay. Now that leads them to the next related piece of this puzzle in dealing with estimates. And that's how do you move forward on a company, a situation where the customer wants to move forward with. So this is the one that I just created. Okay. So if a week had elapsed and the customer calls you back and says, hey, I want to move forward on the estimate that you just did for me. So I can open Explore, highlight the estimate that they would like to convert, and I can either do a right mouse click and say convert, or I could open the estimate, make some changes to it if need be, and then go through the conversion process from there. I'm going to say convert. Here's the warning that I talked about, that it's not going to prevent you from moving forward. This is just a confirmation that you do indeed want to convert this estimate to an order. So yes, if you do, no, if you did not intend that to be the case. Now pay attention to these two little check boxes right here. If you want to convert the estimate to an order and lock the pricing so that the pricing can't be altered, then you'd put a check mark there. If you don't mind if the pricing can be altered, then leave it off. And the order could be opened and edited, and the pricing could be changed. If you want the estimate to be converted to an order and immediately saved as an order without allowing further changes, then you would put a check mark that says, I want to be able to edit it, or I don't want to be able to edit it. I'm going to leave it this way. I'm going to put a check mark here so I can illustrate what's happening. So now it's going through the conversion process. Now this estimate, you recall, had 3 different variations. What you're doing here is the customer is telling you which one you want to convert. So I'm going to say they're going to do that banner. That's the one that they're going to convert. Now the system is going through the motions of saving that particular estimate with under variation 3. They're saving it as an order. Ignore this. This is just the way I've got my system set up. Do you want to post a payment? I'm going to say no. And now notice that it has already been saved as an order in work in process. That order number is 1078. And notice the padlock. That estimate, that order, if I were to edit it, there is a padlock there. So you would have to have privileges in order to unlock that and make further changes to the newly saved order. Now I'm going to go back real quick to exploring estimates so that we can look at this one and notice now that it's been converted. And if I were to open that, notice that I cannot make further changes to it. It's locked. Now that doesn't mean that you can't clone it and then resave it as a different estimate, but you can't edit an estimate that's been converted and saved as an order. Now notice also down here in the lower left, the option that we converted is now in what's referred to as the primary position. In other words, it's appearing first. Okay. We're at a good stopping point for any last minute questions. If not, I'm going to move on.
Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, we do have two questions.
Okay.
The first question is from Michael, and it is, why are some due dates for new orders the same day and others are out 2 weeks?
It's a lot of times it's kind of based on the particular product combinations. Some of the products, I believe, I haven't looked at it for quite a while, but you can, in the setup of the products, they're going to have a parameter in there that designates the number of days before that item will be completed. So it's going to be dependent upon the combination of products that are involved in the estimate or in the order that's going to influence the number of days.
It's really, okay. Paul, isn't it really just the default production days on that
they
product?
May have changed. Yeah, they may have changed it that way.
It is.
At one time, it was product established, and you may very well be right that it's now a production choice parameter. Good. Thanks for reminding me of that. Does that help, Michael?
Yes, I just didn't know if there was a way to set it, like if you want to set everything out 2 weeks or 1 week, do you have that option to control the due dates? I mean, other than manually, yeah.
It's on the product, Paul.
It is at the product level?
It's still on the product level, but it's really based on a kind of default production time for it.
Okay. The second question?
The second question is, can you select multiple options to convert or only one at a time?
I've never been aware that you can choose multiple options. I think it's just a single one.
I believe that's true.
So what that would imply is that you would pick a variation that represents the most of what you want. Mm-hmm. And then you would have to save that, or before it gets saved, you would have to go into the order itself and in an edit mode, begin to copy other line items, or from the estimate that you just converted. There is a way that you could pull the pieces together, but it involves converting one of the variations and then copying other line items from other variations in that estimate or from another order or estimate.
Okay.
I've never really played in detail with those combinations, but yeah, you're restricted to just one variation.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Now, the next topic is statuses in stations. Think of those two phrases as representing the life cycle from beginning to end in the context of estimates, and then separately in the context of orders. Okay? Estimates have their own set of statuses. They're going to begin as pending. In other words, they're beginning their life in a pending status. And then hopefully the next status for that estimate is going to be that it was converted to an order. You may have some estimates that you're going to mark as lost, and there may be some that you're going to mark as voided. Think of lost as the customer advising you that they aren't going to move forward with that estimate that you've produced, either because the price was high or they just decided not to do it, or they chose a different a competitor. Think of voided as you've produced an estimate, you kept it in the system for months, and you periodically go back to the customer to say if they've made a decision to move forward, and you never hear back from them. So I have always thought that voided is me making the decision that I'm not going to continue to put forth effort to work on getting that estimate to convert to an order. So estimates have life cycle of pending, converted, lost, and voided. Each of those respective statuses have stations that's a further delineation in the life cycle of this estimate in this particular with this particular status. So if I look at this particular estimate that's got a pending, and if I right mouse click, now I can change the station for pending and go deeper. I can say, I think it's just a general pending. I can say that I think it's a relatively cold prospect. I can say that we're waiting on artwork to be approved. We expect that it will close next week or this week. So within a pending status for an estimate, you have a half a dozen or more stations that further delineate the prospect of that estimate becoming an order. Okay? If I'm going to change the customer decided that they're not going to move forward, then I would choose mark lost as the status. And now I can choose a reason. Think of the reason as the station for marking an estimate as lost. I lost it to a competitor. Now it's going to change the status, and it's going to give the reason for changing the status. And void works much the same way. I marked it void because I didn't hear from the customer. And after a certain number of months, I just made the business decision that we weren't going to move forward. So estimates, the life cycle of estimates, there's 4 statuses. Each of those statuses have a further delineation that's meaningful for each of those 4. And the combination of those statuses and those stations represent the life cycle of a particular estimate. Now we can echo that for the concept. We can echo that for orders as well. So the statuses are the statuses represent where it begins its life. It's going to begin it in work in process. When the work is finished and it's ready to be delivered or installed or picked up, then it would go move from WIP to built. When the customer takes possession of the finished goods or receives the finished goods, then it enters the 3rd stage, which is sale. It's going to stay in a sale status until you have been paid in full. And then when it's going to go to the 4th status, which is closed. So hopefully it's going to work its way from WIP to built to sale, and then bang, go to closed. There will be times when you're going to mark an order as voided. Something didn't work out, and it just makes sense to void that order. Now, each of these statuses have their unique set of stations. So if we look at WIP and say we want to change the station, I can come straight down, and this represents the additional life cycle within WIP that might be meaningful. It's in design, it's in printing, it's in the vinyl department, it's being fabricated, it's being put together, it's in finishing, it's waiting for QA, etc. So it further delineates where this order is within the context of the work in process. If I want to change the status, then I might want to change it to built. And if I want to change it to built, it has a similar set of stations, or the station would remain whatever it was when it was in work in process. Okay? So it's waiting to be delivered. Okay? So now if I'm going to change it to, some will go straight from work in process to sale. Okay? It has its own unique set of stations that further represent more accurately where it is. I'm going to leave whatever the last station was intact. I'm going to say that it's going to be picked up, it's going to be shipped, or it has been installed, it has been delivered, etc., etc. So you can see that the whole notion of statuses and stations, it's there to help you do a better job of managing the workflow, for estimates, hopefully to result in getting a higher and a quicker rate of conversion to an order. And then in the context of production, it's a tremendous tool to help you work through the entire process of production management and get things in the order stream, work stream, get it through the production cycle and out the door and get your money paid. Now, one of the things that I haven't alluded to, but even within an order, if we look at an order, you can maybe you have an order with a lot of different line items. You can associate a station. I'm not looking at it in the right spot, but you can take the status and station concept down to the line item level. Again, that's a production related, tool, to help you get through the process. We're getting close to the end. We've got just a few more minutes. I want to see if we have any additional questions. And then if not, I'm going to quickly comment on payments in quick products and in print options.
No other questions. No other questions, Paul.
All right. So payments. Obviously, when you're creating a brand new order and you're getting ready to save it, you can post a payment. We kind of saw where that when we converted one, it asked if we wanted to post a payment. When you start from scratch and you create a new order, it's going to ask you if you want to post a payment. I'm going to talk about payments more in the context of think of it as you're getting you've opened your mail for the day and you have customers that have remitted checks that you're going to pay. So in that case, you're going to probably go to the payment function in the toolbar. Here you can choose the company, or you can do a search and say, I want to look and see what the orders are for that particular customer that are open and unpaid, and it's going to show me a list of them. I want to look at a different and say, I want to look at that one and see what I've got. Well, I've got quite a few, okay? So you can choose the company and see what is open, or you could come down and say, I want to look at a specific order and I'm going to make a payment for that specific order. So you can choose the company and look at all of the ones that are open, or you can say, I want to look at this specific order, and then it's going to tell you who the company is, and it's going to open that specific order. And if I'm going to pay that specific order in its entirety, I would just put the check mark there, and it's assuming that the entire amount is going to be paid. If it was not going to be the entire amount, I could put in the value that is being paid, and then I would choose how is it going to be paid. Are they going to give me cash? Are they going to give me a check? So if you're posting it in this manner, generally you're going to choose either of these two. If it's going to be handled manually as an ACH, you would choose that. When you saw that it had cleared from the bank, now you're going to post the payment. Now, dealing with the credit cards, you need to be careful here, because if you're using the automated mechanism where the customer can initiate the payment, then it's a different ballgame. If you're using a third-party merchant vendor other than Freedom Pay, then it's a two-step process of those payments being handled. One, where you simply say in control that they're going to pay by credit card, but you have to go to your separate terminal and get the authorization and actually process the credit card payment. If you're using the integrated mechanism in control gets the authorization and posts it, okay? So it's a little bit more complicated depending on how you're doing that. Now, if I'm let's say that it's going to be a check, and I put in the check number, and now I can record the payment. Now, if you're using Freedom Pay and you give the customer the option of posting the payment, then that's going to happen behind the scenes, and you don't really need to use the payment function. but you have to use the integrated feature, Freedom Pay, and you have to have it set up so that you authorize the customer to initiate their payments. I'm going to move on real quick to quick products. Quick products is this list here, and you can tailor that to suit your preferences by going into setup and pricing, setup and all pricing. On the left-hand column, go down to quick products, the very last item, and choose edit. And then you can either remove them or you can come in and change one to a different product and then list them in the order that you want. So this is the list that I've had that's on my system, and you can edit it. You may or may not use that feature, but I wanted to point out where you go in the event that you want your list here to be unique for how you're going to use the system and which ones you want to have the most readily available. Going to look at orders, and I'm going to talk about printing. So if I want to print this particular invoice, it's going to be the same concept for S. There'll be just slight difference in the appearance. So I would come over to the print function, and if I just choose print, chose print, and this can be set up. These are probably going to be set up as defaults that can be altered if need be. If you have captured the email for a particular contact, it's going to populate here. If you're going to save this, the default is going to be where it's going to be saved. Now, all of these, you can choose this if you want to just simply enter the email for this particular time. You can change the path, the type of appearance, what it's going to be as a PDF, which is the default. You can give it how it's going to name it and where it's going to save it. And the naming is going to be affected by your ability to use the merge fields. So I think the default in the way Control ships is that it's just going to be invoice. I forget what the language is. It's just general. It's generic. I've altered this and said I want to name this with the word invoice, and then I told the system I want to append that to the order number. Okay. Now the same thing applies to estimates. You have basically the same. These first four items up here are identical. Estimates and orders have their own unique set of options. Think of options of you telling the system what you do or what you don't want to print. Okay? And that's what it will do. Now, just real quickly, the reports, if you're just printing general reports, it's very, very similar. You go up to the action or the toolbar and choose a particular report. And you've got the same kind of four things here. Here you're going to be faced with different choices, dates, other things, and you may be faced with different options. So they're similarities, but yet there are differences. Okay, we've run a couple minutes over. Any questions before we call it a day? If not, I'm going to disconnect, and everybody have a good holiday, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.